不错，可是这才第一回合。对，哇！
Chingiz Allazov, the kickboxer's name, who is on everyone's lips at the moment. Chingiz just defeated Marat Grigorian by absolute slickster to defend his one kickboxing featherweight world title. But his most notable wins, the ones that have really cemented his legacy in kickboxing and the ones that have built his name in the sport, have probably come over the elite ties. We're talking Sittichai, Saiyok, Sudsakorn, and the one that really sealed the deal, the knockout win over Superbon Banchamek, the man who had just knocked out another legend in the sport, Giorgio Petrosyan. And now that puts Chingiz as the #1 kickboxer in the 70 kilo weight class, and probably pound for pound the best striker on the planet right now. Now when it comes to kickboxing, especially at the 70 kilo weight class, it's pretty much been dominated by the Thai and the Dutch fighters. Since the K1 Max, with the likes of Kehl winning multiple tournaments and beating pretty much everybody at the weight, the Dutch fighters like Andy Sauer, Albert Kraus, and even the likes of Clinching, who even though he was a Ukrainian fighter, possessed that kind of Dutch style, tight high guard, stand in the pocket and bang. It's either really been the Muay Thai style or that kind of classic kickboxing, what's now kind of known as the Dutch style of fighting, that have been the predominant force in the sport. Now Chingiz is a beautiful blend of the two. He boxes really well, but he also has an excellent Muay Thai base. His combinations are fluid, smooth, fast, explosive. He ticks all the boxes. And the fact that he's been able to make this kind of style work against these really elite Thais with such a strong base, especially Sittichai. Sittichai was glory champion. Very dominant fighter, had beaten Marat Grigorian, I think 3 times, losing the last bout, which it was like Glory were basically saying, Marat's going to keep fighting you until he eventually wins, which kind of happened. And I think Marat left Glory as the 70 kilo champion. And, you know, brilliant fighter. Marat Grigorian's an elite operator. But Marat himself had his own problems against the Thai style. Like he'd beaten Superbon by knockout. Kind of how you beat the Thais, you blow them out the doors early. Similarly to how John Haggerty has beaten the like of Nongo and how he beat Samay, knocking him down several times. You kind of just get them on their heels early and blow them out the water before they get a chance to get going. And even John Haggerty in the Samay fight, when you watch that it's in entirety, Samay is giving him all sorts of problems. He just can't avoid the big shots and takes a few 8 counts, losing a decision. If it wasn't for those 8 counts, he probably would have won. Well, look at Chingiz in kickboxing now. He's using a style that's actually able to beat them on points. Yeah, fair enough, he blew Superbon out the water, but you go and watch the Sittichai fight and he outskills him. The same when he fights Saiyok. Not only does he drop Saiyok several times, he's just battering him. Fair enough, Saiyok was a little bit past his best at this point in time, but still an excellent, dangerous fighter that's beating plenty of foreigners in between. The Thais at 70 kilo have really been the dominant force. They can nullify the kickboxing of Dutch fighters, keeping them at range with the kicks. Just go watch Kehl versus Nicky Holtzken, just as a prime example of how to use your teep, and then watch Superbon versus Marat Grigorian. It's just like a mirror image of the fights, and obviously Superbon training underneath Kehl. There's no questioning why he's so good at that style. Whereas Chingiz is able to do things that not a lot of these other fighters can do. He has ring craft. Now ring craft is what stifled Grigorian in his recent fight. He was just too slick for him. He used lateral footwork, evasive movement with his slick combinations to back it up, to keep Grigorian kind of at bay and nullify a lot of his pressure in fighting. Whereas with the Thais, they're more at range fighters, and you know, for example, the Thais have been using their range fighting to keep these Dutch fighters at bay and stop them being as effective with their hands. Chingiz is blending the two styles. He doesn't remind me of Israel Adesanya in terms of, like, Israel's got a much more calculated and methodical style. He's not really dealing with the Thais that are at the 70 kilo, because when Israel was fighting kickboxing, he was mainly dealing with the Dutch fighters at the heavier weight class of, I think it was 84 kilo or 85 kilo. Whereas the 70 kilos, you got to deal with all these Thais. It's kind of like being a 70 kilo fighter in the UFC. You're going to fight a Dagestani, you've got to deal with a good wrestler at some point. You can't just avoid it like you can at maybe a slightly heavier weight class. That's going off on a different tangent. So Chingiz, with his kickboxing style, he's just such a smooth operator, and he blends aggressive, offensive tactics. Like, he comes in hot and heavy, mixing in punches, kicks and knees, like really off the bat stuff. He'll throw low kicks from awkward angles. He whips up a high kick that the fighters just aren't seeing coming from really close range. Like the head kick he got started with was just like, man, chef's kiss. It was unbelievably flexible. He's got great dexterity in the legs, but it's his ability to do everything. Like when I watch Chingiz fight the Thais, he still blocks roundhouse kicks. He just doesn't accept them. The Dutch fighters often rely on their conditioning. They kind of just eat the kicks on the arms, they eat the kicks on the legs to try and then just instantly counter back. With the boxing, Chingiz is like, nah, I'm going to block it. He incorporates the Muay Thai base that he's got. He's obviously from Belarus, and I think originally from the Kick Fighters gym. Then he's moved on to the, I think it's called the girding gym, or the grinding, I think it's girding gym. Apologies if I mispronounce that. A friend I train with, Farhad Akhmajanu, go check out his fights to see an example of really slick Russian style kickboxing, like really good kickboxing. He trained, I think, with the Kick Fighters gym with Chingiz. They were friends, and when I was in China, I got to kind of learn bits and pieces of how they drill and how they do things. Really good. I can put some stuff up on my Patreon going over that if you're interested in it. But their base is Muay Thai, and they'll all do the IFMAs or the IMAFs. I'm pretty sure it's the IFMAs. I get confused between the MMA version of the amateur tournament and the Muay Thai, but the IFMAs is, I think it's the International Federation Muay Thai Association. Now they produce these tournaments every year, kind of like a mini Olympics, where fighters from different countries compete for medals, and there's funding in some of the tournaments. So I think fighters from like Belarus and I believe even like Kazakhstan, Ukraine, obviously Thailand as well, they'll be funded by their countries to go and compete in these games. So you actually see professional fighters like Yodson Clay, who at the time was like a seasoned pro, going into these amateur fights. Artem Levin, another one, can't remember which country he was representing, but he's turning up with like 70 pro fights, glory champion. And then he could be fighting an amateur from day dot who's had like 6 fights or something, and obviously completely beat the shit out of him. So Chingiz would have had all that experience from these IFMAs. He would have been fighting these amateurs way back in the day, having all this experience. By the time he's like 19, 20, he might have had anything from 50 to 100 fights. I'm not sure on his exact record, but very experienced. Similarly to what you see in boxing, where you see Floyd Mayweather with his undefeated record, but really he's had 130 amateur boxing fights and he's lost 20 of them, or however many, don't quote me on that. So that plays a big factor in this polished professional fighter that you're seeing. Because of the base in the IFMAs, or the IFMAs, you'll see him able to deal with the Thais. He's probably fought Thais plenty of times in these tournaments, and he knows how to deal with it. He knows how to clinch, he knows how to elbow. Even there's no elbows in kickboxing, you'll see Chingiz with the likes of Sittichai, and he's able to grapple with them. So he knows the tricks, he knows the rhythm, and he knows how to beat the rhythm. So similarly to how when he fought Marat Grigorian, he knew, I need to use my footwork, I need to be on my bike, I need to stick a move essentially, and just not get sucked into these, like, you know, 50-50 exchanges in the pocket. Against the Thais, he'll kick with them. He'll kick into his punches. He knows that they're going to respond and counter his punches with their own kicks. He's ready to block it. He nullifies a lot of stuff that they do well. And then he does things like fight off rhythm. So he'll kick into a punch straight away. Like you saw the Superman punch that he got on a Superbon, ironically, supers. He's getting done with a super move. And they throw the Thais off. The Thais like this clear-cut rhythm, this punch, kick, push kick, knee, punch, kick. You can almost count it to the beat, and Chingiz fights a little bit offbeat, as well as knowing the beats that the Thais fight at, so he's able to exploit it. I just find it really interesting. Over the top of this, I'm just going to put footage of various fights, and another factor of why he's beating these Thais now is because Chingiz has done the rounds. He's got experience. I think he's lost 5 times in his career. He's won like 60 fights. Again, don't quote me on that. But again, because he's had these defeats, he knows who he is as a fighter, and he's come through those elements where he's like, oh, I'm a bit nervous. Maybe the first time he fought an elite Thai, he was a bit nervous. When you watch his fight with Sudsakorn, he fights at a bit of a slower pace, a bit more methodical. He's not like blitzing in with his punches. He almost fights Sudsakorn at a more Thai style rhythm. Whereas now, full of confidence, with all this experience, he's taken his losses to the likes of combo machine Enriko Kehl in his one debut, and now he just thinks, forget that, I'm not fighting to that style, I'm gonna be me. He's found himself and who he is, and he's spectacular to watch. He's probably one of my favourite fighters of all time because he possesses everything. He has power, he has speed, he has an unusual offbeat rhythm, he's unique with his approach, and he's tough and durable. He can take a shot, he ain't scared, and he won't back down. I don't think he's ever took an 8 count. I've never seen him dropped, hurt or wobble. So obviously he's got everything, and that is why he's a champion. So the way he beats the Thais, and what you need to do if you're looking to fight Thais or get into kickboxing and deal with Thais, you need to understand the rhythm first. You need to understand the rules before you're able to break them. I'm not sure who said that quote. It's a good one. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give a comment, like and subscribe. You can catch me over on Patreon and request more things that you particularly want over there. Pro striking out. I'll catch you later. No!
new, undisputed, one featherweight kickboxing champion of the world, Chingiz Allazov.